Hi, how was your weekend?
Very good, thank you. Nice and relaxing. And the past couple of topics we've had here on the show for health, we've been talking about running. It's all been focusing on running because on the 10th of January, we've got the Eridu Marathon.
Yes.
And not just the marathon, there's the half marathon and the 10K.
And 10K.
We've got a posse of us here.
Yes,
who
we're
are
running this.
Yes, running this town.
Absolutely.
And I wanted to play that song actually, but it's too explicit, unfortunately. There's no version without swearing. So sorry, Jay-Z.
There's not.
You've missed out on your UF radio play.
No, try and find something else that's run worthy. There's quite a lot of. Maybe you guys could text and tweet into us if you've got some running
inspired
songs.
music.
Yeah, I've got to try and think of that one actually.
Definitely.
But yeah, we've been talking about that, and if you're listening and you're not taking part, that's not a problem. Don't think, oh well, this is no use to me. It is, because this is to do with exercise as well, or just any form of running that can be shorter distances. So we've spoken about the right gear to wear, the food to fuel your run, and probably the most important one I feel is hydration for your run. It's very important to hydrate yourself. So it's essential on a daily basis to have proper hydration, especially in warmer climates where we live and when we're exercising. But, running over a long distance, it really increases our need to take extra special care of this. So we must strike a good balance between enough, which is not too much water, there is such a thing, or too little. So let's discuss, sort of the main reason people don't drink too much while running. And it can come in the form of that nagging pain in your side, which is called a side stitch.
Yeah. Horrible, nasty.
Yes.
Feels like it comes to destroy your run.
It's a strange phenomenon, isn't it? I mean, we call it a stitch. British people tend to call it just a stitch, but some people call it side stitch, side ache, or a side cramp. I've heard some other kind of names, but you tend to experience it as a new runner or a new exerciser because of a combination of things. I'll first of all tell you what a stitch is. Do you have any idea what it actually is?
No, I don't actually.
No
I
idea.
have no idea. Other than I would associate with drinking or eating or not breathing properly, or I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I always find it interesting to think, you've got this thing happening in your body, and do you not find it fascinating to wonder, what is that? Because it's not anything serious. We all know that.
Yeah.
We all know it's going to go away.
I think it's because when you're a child, you have them all the time.
Yeah.
I remember running around the playground and things, and because it's a familiar feeling, I just never felt the need to really research it. I don't know.
That's a good point, actually. That's a really good point. So basically, I'll get a bit technical here. So the correct term is gastric emptying. So this is basically, just as I've said, it's your stomach emptying of its contents. So it does that. Yeah, it does that in order to release energy for you to keep moving. So basically, when gastric emptying is slowed down, the food sloshes about inside the gut for longer, and it moves slowly through your GI tract, that's your gastrointestinal tract, giving you that stitch feeling.
So it's when it's slow. That's what's
slow.
Causing. Okay.
So what you've got to think about, as I've said there, most people who experience a stitch tend to be new to running or new to exercise because they're not familiar with the routine that we've spoken about of what to eat. So I've had people come to my sessions, my personal training sessions, they'll get a stitch and I'll say, oh, what did you have? Oh, I just had my lunch half an hour ago. Why on earth would you do that? But they're not used to it. They're new to it. So it's learning how to do things properly. So basically, the reason you're getting a stitch is because you've drank or ate too close to exercising, and your body's not used to it. If you're a new exerciser, your body's also not used to. I can drink not long before running and still never get a stitch because my body's used to it. But if you're not, you're more likely to get that stitch. And it's a shame because actually it puts people off.
Oh, it is. I mean, because when you get a stitch, you feel a bit like, well, that's that. I've got to stop. If it gets that bad, sometimes you can kind of just breathe through it and it'll pass.
It depends on the severity of it. But, the ironic thing is that, people are often scared from it. But actually, the fitter you become, the less likely you are to have a stitch. Why? Your body's become used to it. So what happens is your body, this is really important, listen to this. The more you exercise and the fitter you become, your body knows, okay, this food has got to go through me quickly to release energy. So that's why athletes, premium athletes, their body moves food through them quicker to release it for energy. That's also good for your weight.
Yeah.
Because you're not holding on to too many nutrients. And also your body has to physically move the food through it quicker.
Metabolism's just going to be
exactly.
revved up.
Laura's been learning through this show. So your metabolism's revved up. You're burning calories just to digest the food. So it's an awesome thing. We all know how fascinated I am with the body. Okay? So that is what a stitch is. We've already established why it happens. It tends to be high intensity exercise, right? You don't really normally get a stitch walking.
Yeah.
It depends how much you've drank and ate beforehand, but it tends to come from high intensity exercise. It can also come from dehydration. So if you've not actually had enough, your gut is actually empty and it will kind of spasm.
Okay.
So you need to be careful about that. But one of the worst culprits, it's not water as you might think, like, oh, I drank too much water. It's actually carb-laden food, which is silly because we've been speaking about loading up carbs, right?
Yeah.
But we're speaking about it the night before.
Yeah.
Or a few hours before. If you, and I have seen people doing this, is drinking these sort of Gatorade, electrolyte fueled drinks, you don't do that when you're exercising or before. You do it towards the end of a really long run, like a marathon, or after. It's there for an injection of fuel. Gatorade originally was promoted as a American football type thing. It was like when these guys needed a quick burst of energy, they took a drink of it and they got back on the pitch.
Yeah.
And got on with it. It's not something that you should be drinking as you're running on a treadmill.
No.
Because when you have that too many carbs in a drink, it basically slows down that gastric emptying. So we don't really want that. So when you're going to be running, just bear that in mind, okay? So you might be asking then, Laura, you don't really get stitches now because you're kind of used to it. So
yeah, I don't think I know I have before suffered from them when I've been going for a run or on the treadmill, but I don't really have any problem with them. Thank God.
They can come on randomly. I mean, I've had them sometimes and thought, oh, why have I got this today? And it can just be like, what did I eat? And certainly fatty food as well can be quite, or like sugary food can be a culprit. So going back to that eating clean sort of mantra, it does actually work. If you eat quite clean, you shouldn't experience too many problems. Some tips to avoid getting a stitch, okay? So go to the bathroom before you exercise. That means you don't have as much liquid, obviously, inside your system. And warm up properly as well. You can get a stitch if you just go running into something too fast.
Just from 0 to 60.
Yeah, it's just your body's not ready for it. So really warm up properly and gradually. Drink water beforehand, but not too much, okay? So a few hours before, like we've said. Improve your fitness. Your body will get used to it. And make sure you breathe properly. So you're inhaling through the nose and full exhalation through the mouth should help you. And if a stitch does start when you're running, slow it down. You don't have to completely stop. You can just slow the pace down, even start to walk. I sometimes have stretched into it and it sort of just relieve it a little bit.
Yeah.
I often hold the area as well. Like I sort of grab the
It feels like it helps, doesn't it?
I know,
you feel like maybe you're just going to massage the area.
I think you are, because it must be doing something if you're actually,
your instinct is to go to it straight away.
Yeah, and if you actually do stop completely, then you should definitely then at that point bend into it, like do a side bend or bend forward, just to release the diaphragm as well and ease some of that pain. So and also if you stopped, you can raise both your hands above you and just really inhale fully and then exhale. So that should definitely help. I've already mentioned before in the last show about hydration, so it is important. So just make sure, a great tip for runners is to sip whilst you run. So when you're on that treadmill, it's not the time to be thinking about drinking. You should have done that beforehand. And then if you feel your mouth is dry or your throat needs some water, sip. Just sip throughout it, and then towards the end, you can certainly start to drink a little bit more because you know
the end is near.
Exactly, and then you can start that fluid coming into you again. On the actual, if you are going to be running the Urdu Marathon in January, on the actual day, you probably will see people spitting water out. This is quite common. I've done it myself. It's not ladylike, but when you're running a long distance,
ladylikeness just goes out.
Yeah, it's all dignity is gone. It's gone out the window. You're swiping bottles of water from stands, snatching them off people, and I have poured water over my head. It's very iconic.
Yeah.
Water over my head, and I've swirled it in my mouth and spat it out because that is what's quite common. Your mouth feels dry, your throat feels dry, but you don't want to take too much water in. So it's getting enough of just a little bit of a trickle down there. So this is kind of quite normal. Let me just tell you what the recommendations for hydration actually are, okay? So you should be drinking 2 hours before you exercise, half a litre. Okay, of water, so 2 hours before. And then during exercise, like I've said, little sips here and there, 100 to 200 mils. And then after exercise, I've already mentioned this, half a litre. So, we're not, thankfully, going to be too hot and sweaty on that day, but when we sweat, we lose water, so we have to replace it. I should mention as well, this is quite rare, but I've spoken about this before on the show, which is there is a risk of drinking too much water. And this has happened at races before. Even some really experienced athletes have drank far too much water in a short space of time. It's called hyponatremia, and it happens if the sodium in your body is severely depleted. Basically, the salt levels in your body become really diluted down.
Yeah.
Because you've drank too much water. It's quite dangerous. But our bodies are smart enough, to send us these signals. Stop. If you feel hydrated, stop. Listen to the signals your body's sending you, right? So you got to do that. And electrolytes are really important because they give you a quicker boost, shall we say, back to your, because when you sweat, you lose salt.
Yeah. So
you can't just drink water. You have to replace
it on my skin sometimes. As gross as that sounds, after a long run, I look and it's like I'm like a pretzel.
Yeah, and that's why like sweat tastes of salt, right? It's like it's kind of pretzel. It's kind of gross, but you're losing salt, therefore you need to replace it. So if you just drink water, water's great, but it's plain.
Yeah.
There's no salt in it.
Yeah.
So you should actually be replacing it with those electrolytes. You can get these little sachets as well, which give you a little boost. So our body is well equipped to withstand dramatic variations in fluid intake during exercise and at rest with sort of no detrimental health effects. So it's nothing to worry about. Most recreational exercisers out there, you'll never suffer from dehydration or the opposite, hyponatremia, too much water. So please don't find this information alarming. It's just something to be informative and just to remember to look after yourself. I'm always alarmed here that no one drinks enough water.
No, I know.
So please just bear that in mind when you're heavily exercising and training, and prepare yourself. Like, this is the last one on the show that I'm really going to do about this marathon. We'll check in again every so often, see how everyone's getting on. But we've told you now about what to eat and what to drink. So hopefully that's really been informative for you.
Power that run.
Absolutely.
To the finish line.
Your body is a machine, and that machine needs proper fuel. So look after it.
And we're looking glamorous as well with our suggestions of fashion.
Absolutely.
Well, we'll catch up with you again on Wednesday this week.
I'm going to be back on Wednesday. I'm going to be talking about this age-old myth, calories in versus calories out. So if you're looking to lose some weight, so you're maybe not interested in the marathon running, you may be actually looking to lose some weight, this is a really informative chat we'll be having then.
Perfect. We'll catch up with you then.
Great. See you then.